The CARIMAM project aims to strengthen the network of stakeholders involved in marine mammal conservation in the wider Caribbean region. One of the objectives is to strengthen capacities among the CARIMAM members. This presentation is the second of 4 dedicated to marine mammal stranding network strengthening. Stranding networks bring together scientists and volunteers and coordinate their response when an animal is found stranded on the coast or distressed at sea. You will find here some guidance to develop or strengthen the marine mammal stranding network in your territory. So a few words about your trainer, myself. I'm Claire Piusineri. I'm a marine biologist and I'm working for the Regional Activity Center of the Specially Protected Area and Wildlife Protocol of the Cartagena Convention, the SPORAC. I have also been a member of the French Stranding Network for almost 20 years, and I have coordinated the development of the stranding networks in 2 French overseas territories. First Mayotte in the Indian Ocean and then French Guiana in South America. So in order to develop or strengthen the stranding network in your territory, you may consider the following steps. First, of course, you should take stock of the situation. Then you should define the purposes of the network and the governance. Then the procedures and protocols should be clearly stated. And when this is done, when relevant, you may enhance capacity and communication. In the following slides, you will find more details on these various steps. So first, as I have just said, of course, you need to take stock of the situation. And first, it is important to know the characteristics of the strandings in your territory. What is the stranding frequency? What are the main species involved? Is that small cetaceans, whales, or mainly manatees? Are animals mainly dead or alive? What are the main known threats to marine mammals in your territory? Is that bycatch, acoustic disturbance, oil spill? And how can you identify these threats on a stranded animal? According to the stranding characteristics, you can then list the required resources to develop or strengthen your network and identify which ones are available in your territory and which ones are lacking. So of course you need people, logistic and funding. Regarding people, you need committed volunteers to alert and intervene on strandings. For that, you may mobilize local organizations such as NGOs, MPAs, etc. You also need expertise with mammalogists and veterinaries to support the network in defining protocols and also intervene when animals alive are found stranded. Finally, it is also relevant to have in your network some representatives of local authorities. Regarding logistics, you will need sampling equipment, of course, but also some means to transport carcasses and equipment to store samples. Finally, don't forget to look for funding to develop the network, but also to sustain the network and later to perform data analysis. Regulation issues must also be looked at. Indeed, marine mammals are protected species in most Caribbean countries. As you can see on this map, about half of SPO countries, represented with blue EEZ, have a specific regulation for marine mammals. So you need to know what is allowed and forbidden regarding marine mammals in your territory and what you need exemptions for. Manipulation, transport, collection, storage, etc. So once you have taken stock of the situation regarding strandings and current stranding response in your territory, you can define the objectives of your network and its governance. First, if your network is going to involve several organizations, you may create a steering committee, representative, of course, of the network members, volunteers, NGOs, research centers, MPAs, local authorities, etc. Then the steering committee can, in accordance with step 1, the state of the art, define the objectives, priorities, and scope of the network. Depending on these objectives and the scope of the network, the governance can be more or less complex and structured. Of course, things will be very different if your territory is a small island where strandings are very rare, or a continental country with several hundred kilometers of coastal areas and many organizations involved in the network. So, depending on all that, you may nominate a network coordinator, define to which conditions organizations and people can become a member of the network. For example, do they need to attend a training? Do they need a legal authorization? Do they have to be the member of a local environmental organization, etc. However, be inclusive, as you may need many hands. You may also nominate who or which organization will be responsible for data and sample storage. You can also set up a legal status for the network. And finally, you can draft a charter to be signed by the network members with all these elements, but also procedures and protocols that we are going to see on the next slides. Once you have your objectives and a governance, it is time to clearly state your procedures and protocols. And this is very important. First of all, to be able to professionally and quickly respond to strandings, but also to collect consistently data and samples so that they can be used for knowledge enhancement and decisions making, and also to comply with legal framework. Examples of procedures and protocols are given in the corresponding presentations by Caroline and Gabriela, so I won't detail that topic in this chapter. I have just listed what you should not forget. Also, you will find several examples of standardized procedures, protocols, and field sheets in English, Spanish, and French on the CARIMAM website page dedicated to strandings. You have the address here and the QR code. First, it is recommended to define an alert and a post-response procedure. You can draft a call reception form with information to be asked and to be given to the stranding reporter. You may define areas of intervention with corresponding stranding network member contacts. You can define resources that should be mobilized for the various stranding cases, dead unique individual and alive animals, mass strandings of large cetaceans, animal distressed at sea, oil spills, etc. Don't overlook unusual cases, as some may be very difficult to manage, so you have to be prepared. Finally, it may be relevant to list the contacts of organizations outside the network that should be notified before and after the stranding response, such as local authorities, public services, and medias. It is also recommended to mobilize, coordinate with, and make a contact list of local organizations that may be of potential assistance, such as veterinary office if you have a live animal, police offices for public safety, public services for the disposal of stranded carcasses after the stranding response. Also organizations that have resources to intervene at sea, and also fishermen and whale watchers. You can draft a stranding reflex form for them. It is then important to define a protocol for data and sample collection from already available standardized protocols and in accordance with local specificities, such as species, threats, resources available, etc. Don't forget to clearly state who can intervene on strandings and what is allowed, depending on the legal framework. And also, don't forget to draft the corresponding field sheets for the network members. Another recommendation is that, given that the level of response and capacity to respond to stranding differ according to the situation, it is often relevant to propose sampling protocols of different levels, from basic, that may be conducted in all cases, to complex protocols dedicated to experienced vets. It is also important to define protocols for data and sample storage. When relevant, you may create a database for data and samples, set up procedures to ensure sample traceability, such as labeling, and don't forget to nominate the organizations in charge of data and sample storage. You can also define a procedure for future data and sample exploitation projects, the conditions, and who should be co-authors of the publications and all that. Once you have determined your objectives, governance, procedures, protocols, well, it's time, when relevant, of course, to enhance the capacity of your network. It's recommended to regularly organize stranding capacity building workshops for the technical response team, and this training should include stranding response in the various possible cases, unique dead animal, mass stranding, a live animal, etc. The training should also include a necropsy training, and sample collection needs and protocols should be described in detail along with safety issues. The training should be a combination of lecture and hands-on sessions. You may also have to buy the lacking equipment for the different stranding cases, a live animal rescue, data and sample collection, transport and storage, and this for each area of intervention you have defined in your territory. Finally, you may need to look for funds for the network development, but also for its long-term continuation. That is for the coordination, to renew equipment, and later to perform analysis. Now that you're ready, it's time to communicate. First, of course, it is often relevant to set up networking tools to facilitate the communication between the network members, such as a WhatsApp group, regular meeting, a mailing list, etc. In territories with long coastal areas, it is often difficult to be alerted each time a stranded animal is observed. So it is often relevant to enhance the network visibility in your territory, and not only towards the public, but also towards public services, NGOs, MPAs, etc. And to do so, you may provide the network with a name, a logo, a telephone number, an email address, and you may create communication materials such as flyers, posters, websites, TV and radio spots, and t-shirts for the stranding team. Finally, when you have enough data and samples, and when you start thinking about their exploitation, it is important to enhance the network visibility at a wider scale, notably to develop collaborations with research institutions. I have shown here the logos of some of the main organizations that organize workshops and conferences that may be of interest for stranding networks in the region. We have the GCFI, the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute, the SMM, the Society for Marine Mammalogy, SOLAMAC, the Latin America Society for Aquatic Mammals, SOMEMA, the Mexican Society for Marine Mastozoology, and of course, CARIMAM. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this presentation has provided you with useful tips and guidance to develop or strengthen the stranding network in your territory. And if you're looking for some additional information and resources regarding stranding networks, here are some websites you can take a look at. You have, of course, the CARIMAM website with its page dedicated to strandings. You have the Global Marine Animal Stranding Toolkit, also the Global Stranding Network website, and the International Whaling Commission Stranding Initiative. You have the addresses here and also the QR code that you can scan.